Four drones versus a Corvette. Why the Buyan-M could not fire. On August 28, 2025, the Sea of Azov, one of the smallest seas on the planet, was the setting for an unlikely encounter. Its maximum depth is about 43 to 46 feet, roughly 13 to 14 meters, so the water warms quickly in summer and used to draw vacationers. For more than 3 years, however, the usual summer bustle has been absent from its shores. Instead of schooners and pleasure boats, its waters have been filled with warships. Among them was a Russian Buyan-M class Corvette anchored not far from the Crimean Bridge. It had gone out on the hunt, in the literal sense. In round transport containers on its deck, 8-caliber cruise missiles lay concealed, comparable in role to American Tomahawks. In an hour or two, they could have left their shelters and within another hour struck some Ukrainian city. Kyiv, Dnipro, Kharkiv, and so on. Millions of people would have been in the strike zone. The cruise task seemed routine and well-rehearsed, but today it would not be completed. The hunt would take place, but the hunter would become the prey. For this, we temporarily leave the warm, but because of the war, now inhospitable Sea of Azov and move a couple of hundred miles inland to the Zaporizhzhia steppes. There, in one of the many tree lines that cut through the fields, several vehicles were huddled. 4 ordinary pickups, weathered by life and even more by war. On each were rail guides holding a single small bird, no more than 5 feet long, about 1.5 meters. A predatory bird, of course not living but man-made, a strike kamikaze built to hunt people and equipment. These birds have a fitting name, Rubaka, which in Ukrainian can be translated as the one who cuts hard. There's even an old expression, a daring Rubaka cavalryman. Next to the pickup stood a boxy vehicle with a large cabin, known in army slang as a kung. That was the Rubaka-controlled station. The electronic clock inside the kung gave a short chirp at 3:30. As if on that tiny beep command, everything sprang into motion. A finger pressed a big red button. Behind the walls of the kung, something heaved and the characteristic low roar of a jet motor sounded, leaving a thick, wide, fiery streak across the dimming pre-dawn sky. The first Rubaka lifted off. A few seconds later, there was a sharp whistle and its partner shot into the air, then another and another. Each machine launched down its rail on a short but powerful impulse, a starting powder booster giving the drone the initial speed it needed. After a couple of seconds, the booster separated, fell back and vanished behind the tree line, and the Rubaka's little piston engine started, spinning a propeller that gently carried the now airborne plane toward its destination. Within a minute, 4 motors were humming in the air, the drone's fuselages glinting in the half-light as the birds smoothly took up course. Against the dark gray sky, they quickly reduced to points until finally they blended into the flaming morning horizon and disappeared from view. Each craft's route had been pre-programmed as a sequence of waypoints loaded into the inertial navigation system, with the final phase set to accept operator commands sent over cellular networks, Ukrainian or Russian, depending on which signal proved stronger. While the Rubaka drones sped through the pre-dawn sky, it's worth explaining what these machines are, how they work, and why they were chosen for this operation. The Rubaka is neither a small helicopter nor a missile in the conventional sense. It's a loitering munition, a kamikaze drone, a miniature airplane whose airframe carries the warhead. The design is compact, up to 5 feet long, with a wingspan up to 6.5 feet and a takeoff mass of roughly 90 pounds, about 40 kilograms. Payload is up to 20 to 30 pounds, around 10 to 15 kilograms. Rubaka is launched from a mobile launcher with guide rails mounted on a truck or trailer, and the launch uses a powder booster that gives a short, powerful impulse. Once the booster falls away, the drone's piston engine comes to operating RPM and flight begins. Navigation and control are hybrid, initially following preloaded waypoints via an inertial navigation system aided by GPS, and in the final phase accepting guidance over a video link via cellular networks with the data link protected by frequency hopping and encryption. Of course, the little plane is vulnerable. Rubaka can be destroyed by dense small caliber and larger caliber fire and is susceptible to electronic warfare, while weather factors such as strong wind, rain, and heavy fog sharply reduce range and accuracy. All these shortcomings are outweighed by one advantage: cost. One such craft costs up to $10,000 and can be built in a garage. As this Russo-Ukrainian war has shown, it's often better to field 100 simple, cheap plywood drones at $10,000 each than one high-tech unit at $100,000. In this war, the sledgehammer proved more effective than the scalpel. Each morning found Rubaka over the contact line, flying at altitudes up to about 100 feet, roughly 30 meters, and with a small radar cross-section, these little aircraft are hard targets. Difficult, but not invulnerable. Russian air defense systems detected them, but rather late. At roughly 150 miles per hour, about 240 kilometers per hour, the Rubaki crossed the front line and vanished into the sky, initially with no losses. Russian operators already knew, however, that Ukrainian drones were headed toward the Sea of Azov, and radio commands went out as Russian forces prepared to repel the attack. The first serious obstacle for the Rubaki was the Panzer S-1, a mobile short and medium-range air defense complex that combines guided missiles and two rapid-fire 30mm guns with radar and electro-optical tracking. It's designed for quick reaction against fixed-wing aircraft, helicopters, cruise missiles, and conventional drones at low and medium altitudes, and under standard conditions can effectively protect a ship or coastal installation. Yet the Panzer has tactical limits in engagement angles and tracking speed. There are time delays in the system and imperfect algorithms for trajectory prediction. In short, it's far from absolute protection, especially against small, maneuverable, low-flying FPV-style craft that the system was not originally optimized to fight. The alerted Panzer reacted instantly. Its radar and optics locked on the target, calculated speed and course, and issued the first intercept sequence. The tactic was standard. First, fast intercepts with short-range missiles, then a dense barrage from the twin 30mm cannons. The Panzer's launchers were already turned toward the threat, and its electronics began calculating points of interception. The battery commander used a classic technique, launching interceptors in a stepped pattern at different altitudes and ranges to force the attacking drones through at least one engagement grid. But the small FPV drones followed their own combat logic. They didn't fly straight. Their operators, taking direct control, began aggressive maneuvers, changing course every 1 to 2 seconds, jerking sharply, dropping suddenly, and diving low. This broke the tracking algorithm's predictions, which relied on average data to calculate flight paths. By the time the system updated the previous trajectory, the target was already on a new one. Another factor was the short arming delay of surface-to-air missiles. To prevent premature detonation, modern missiles have a brief, safe arming interval, about a second, during which the fuse will not trigger near the launcher. The FPV pilots knew this and used it. When they saw a launch flash, they executed a steep dive directly beneath the interceptor's path, slipping under the zone where the warhead was still unarmed. The missiles streaked overhead without detonating. After the missiles came the Panzer's guns. Two twin 30mm 2A38M automatic cannons raised their barrels and poured out a leaden storm at a rate of about 3,000 rounds per minute. Yet other limitations emerged. The automatic targeting systems were optimized for larger, more predictable trajectories, not for a small, fast-jinking target hugging the deck. Thermal imagers at pre-dawn were poorly suited to spotting the faint heat of low-power piston engines against the warm sky above the nearby sea. Temperature inversions and thermal noise made the small bird flicker in and out of the picture. Much of the storm of fire lashed empty air. Meanwhile, one Rubaka dove almost vertically into the Panzer, slipping into the dead zone of its cannons. Its strike hit the radar. A jet of flame pierced the structure and scorched the electronic modules, turning them into a blackened mix of steel and ceramic. The Panzer was blinded. There was no need to finish it off. 3 Ukrainian kamikaze drones streaked overhead and continued on their course. Their operators could already clearly see the sea's surface on their screens, gray in the early light. The operator of the Rubaka that heroically perished removed his headset and stretched. His work for the day was done. 20 minutes later, the cameras of the remaining 3 Rubaka drones spotted the Russian Corvette, and flashes flared as the ship's AK-630 naval artillery system opened fire, 6 rotating barrels spewing shells. It was designed for large radar-visible targets such as missiles and aircraft, and against plywood drones that darted and jinked, it proved helpless. Tracer lines streaked past, and the distance between the ship and the Rubaki closed fast. The Corvette tried to evade the fatal meeting with a maneuver, but can a 1,000-ton ship match the agility of a 90-pound drone? It's like an elephant trying to dodge a mosquito, and no miracle came. One by one, the Rubaki struck the Corvette. In the wheelhouse, the displays went dark, the radar was disabled, targeting data vanished, and communication channels were severed. The second drone found a vulnerable spot near the launchers, punched through the skin and damaged hydraulic pumps and the electronics of the loading mechanism. The hydraulics failed, electrical circuits caught fire, and the 8-caliber missiles were trapped inside their canisters. The third drone hit the bridge. It couldn't punch through the steel plate, but it delivered several very unpleasant moments for the Russian officers. Sirens wailed and the automatic firefighting system kicked in. In the end, the ship did not sink, but it was put out of action for a long time. Burned out cables, a destroyed radar, mangled hydraulics, and scorch marks on the bridge all spoke plainly. One of Russia's caliber containers would not be firing in this war anymore. The red sun slowly set over the waters of the Sea of Azov. Tomorrow would be a new day, and Ukrainian drones would again seek Russian targets here on the Sea of Azov, in the Black Sea, in Donbas, and in these Zaporizhzhia steppes. The war would continue to reap its bloody harvest, mocking the folly of people who refuse compromise. Some would say it's better to kill and be killed than to bask in warm seawater. What do you think? Thanks for watching. We'd appreciate a like and a subscription to our channel. See you again soon.